Feminism in the book Their Eyes Were Watching God. The book Their Eyes Were Watching God, written by Zora Neale Hurston, has relevance today because of its feminist views. Throughout the years, women have faced many inequalities that have challenged them in terms of their freedom and voice. This shows how men have seen women as inferior. In the book, this inequality and mistreatment of women can be seen through Janie, and how she suffers her whole life because a man is always tying her down. To this day, this behavior can be seen in the real world. Women have suffered a lot of mistreatment by men and injustice only because they are women. Due to this oppression, women decided to stand up for themselves, create a movement, and fight. Now, in the 21st century, society and the feminist community is still trying to grow and show others that inequality still happens and what that means today in the world. In a journal written by Long Shi, titled Black Feminism in Their Eyes Were Watching God, Shi talks about the novel and how feminism ideals can be seen in Janie because the only thing she wants is to be free and independent. She writes, Janie who seeks for female rights and fulfills herself through her own effort. In the course of Janie's pilgrimage towards female rights, she goes through 3 stages, that is, Janie's loss, Janie's awakening, and Janie's fulfillment. These 3 stages, explained by him, show the growth Janie goes through in order to become what she wants to be. The first stage is the loss Janie goes through. She not only loses her grandma nanny, but also loses her rights, equality, and freedom even more than before because of being constantly oppressed by many factors like gender inequality, sexuality, spiritual beliefs, and her 3 marriages. She's facing gender inequality because in the book, men see women as inferior. Not only do they see women as the weaker sex, but they are dominant over them, taking away their rights to have a voice. Marriage is really important in the novel because the only way women get to have some power is if they marry a powerful rich man. Sadly, Janie's marriages to men are not great. Men always tend to abuse her, even slap her, because they see her as a minority. This brings her down because the only thing she wants is to be happily married with someone that will treat her properly. Her sexuality is challenged because if a woman has male-like characteristics like intelligence, power, and authority, they are seen in a manly way, which makes them unattractive to men. On the other hand, it was normal to see these characteristics only in men because it demonstrated their dominance they had and made them look superior. These oppressions Janie goes through are all related to the power men have over women, which creates her awakening and see growth as a character. We can see how every time she doesn't give up and decides to stand up to the men in her marriages and show the power she has. The second stage Janie goes through is her awakening. Her awakening consists of a spiritual and of finding her powerful sexuality. Every time Janie feels sad or mistreated, she resorts and connects to a pear tree. This tree symbolizes herself and her growth as a woman. She writes, we can recon that nature becomes the medium for women to radically pursue spirit, as well as the subversive deconstruction of the power structures that enhance man-dominated world. It demonstrates how women resource nature and connect with it in a spiritual way in order to be free. While in the muck, Janie finally gets to know what freedom tastes like, living happily where she is. She also gets to find the sexuality inside her that makes her stand up to men. Like telling Logan Killicks she was going to leave him and insult him back. On Joe Stark's deathbed, she confronts him about everything bad he did to her, making it the last words he heard. And in that moment was the peak in Janie's awakening, finally being able to reach fulfillment. The third stage is Janie's fulfillment. She's able to achieve this for the particular reason that she was no longer dependent on men, and not concentrated on how they would make her happy, but instead how she would make herself happy. She finally started to think about herself before others, making her finally discover what she really wanted, being free and independent. Being with Tea Cake helped her a lot because with him, she finally got to understand the real significance of love. Her love with Tea Cake was very passionate and strong, everything that a happily marriage should have. For example, Tea Cake even showed her new things like play checkers, something that in her past marriages she couldn't do because she was told that only men could play that game. Tea Cake was the only man that had ever seen and treated her as an equal. This helped Janie in a way that she finally was able to grow as a person and heal all those wounds created by past marriages, and she was able to be reborn. This book is based in the late 1860s, but even before that, women were being treated unfairly. In the Women's Suffrage Timeline by Susan Barber, it shows different eras in which the rights for women started to change and become better. In 1861 through 1865, the American Civil War was happening, and this made women stand up and make a change. Susan Barber noted that the American Civil War disrupts suffrage activity as women, North and South, divert their energies to war work. The war itself, however, serves as a training ground as women gain important organizational and occupational skills that were later used in postbellum organizational activities. Men were required to serve in the war and had to step down from their normal duties in order to become soldiers and fight for their country. This made women step up and do the jobs men had to do. Those jobs even consisted of hard manual labor, but women were able to do it. This created more equality for them, showing that they could do what any man can do no matter how hard it was. Besides this demonstration, women showed in the war not much recognition was given to them. That's why many women decided to rise up and make a change, creating the women's rights movement. Important women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony have previously helped and participated in abolishing slavery and started a movement to help end women's suffrage. During the debate over the 14th Amendment, Stanton objected to the use of that word male and sent to Congress the first of many petitions supporting women's suffrage. Stanton sent many petitions to Congress to help women out, but none of them ever reached out. It was until 1866 that a Congress representative in New York called James Brooke read Stanton's petitions. He got help from George Washington Julian, and he was able to propose a constitutional amendment to make citizens get a right to vote no matter their race, color, or sex, giving women a chance. Sadly, the petition did not come through, and the congressmen were not inclined to support women's suffrage. Finally, on August 18, 1920, the Congress passed the law of allowing women to vote, transforming that into the 19th Amendment. This was the greatest accomplishment in liberty given to women after many years of pain. Today, in the 21st century, women have more freedom than ever, and the oppression has finally declined. Many people wonder, what does feminism mean today, and is it still relevant? An article written by Bridget Murray Law has the answer. When interviewing Cynthia de las Fuentes, who was a PhD on Society for the Psychology of Women, she said, "We've had trouble communicating feminism and continuing relevance to young people and people of color." She pointed out that the continuation of teaching the young generation about feminism has declined a lot. Meanwhile, she doesn't point out why. My opinion is the neglection and lack of education provided to the young generation about topics like gender equality and others that will not only inform them, but also help keep the world in a balanced way and not go back to where it was before for women. Feminism doesn't need redefinition, but instead, a bigger view and provide more education to people. A psychologist teaching a class even said that at first her students, when asked, said that they were not considered feminist, but by the end of the last class, the same question was asked, and they responded that they were, showing how education can really lead to success. As it can be seen, the feminism shown in Hurston's book is relevant today. This is because the reader sees feminism in the main character of the book, Janie, and how she goes through different challenges, like oppression of her sexuality, spiritually, and her 3 marriages that challenge her gender as a woman, making her feel inferior. But at the same time, that makes her find herself and be finally free, being able to reach fulfillment. Also, we can see how Janie's struggle is also reflected in the world through many women, since back in the day, that oppression is shown and how even superior power denied the support to help women. That inequality leads women to stand up for themselves and have a voice in the world, leading to the relevance of what feminism means today in the world and the important it is for people to teach and show the younger generation to support others.